Hey, today we are going to be starting Siman Reish Mem Beis, the first Siman of Hilchos Shabbos. We kind of went a little out of order. First, we did Siman Reish Nun, then we did Siman Reish Samech, we did Reish Samech Beis, and they're all really tie into each other. The halachas of cutting nails Erev Shabbos, showering, nice clothing, setting the table, buying the food. So this is another Siman which kind of ties in. They're kind of scattered. So that's why I thought it was good to do it in this order because they all have to do with the very practical halachas of Erev Shabbos. All right, so let's start from the source of all halacha, which is the Torah himself. So the Torah begins by quoting Gemara in Shabbos Garcinan Beperek. Now there's two texts in the Torah. It says Kama de Shabbos Kol Kisvei Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yosi. So Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yosi, Kol Hama'ane gets a Shabbos, Noisnim Lo Nachala, Beli Mitzarim. Anyone, this is in Shabbos, Kuf Yud Chesem Alf, Kuf Yud Chesem Alf and Beis. Anyone who is Ma'anek Shabbos, he makes a pleasure out of Shabbos, which we're going to be learning about, he will be given an inheritance without borders. All right? So it's a good thing. We'll have to see the measure for measure there. The Midah can I get Midah. The Beis Yosef actually quotes the Mahariya Vuhov, who says that it's measure for measure. Midah can I get Midah over here. That just like he's willing to spend a lot of money, he's willing to spend whatever it is for the actual Shabbos necessities, L'Sarach Shabbos. So too, he will be given tremendous amount without a limit, an unlimited amount, so to say. Measure for measure. Then the Torah continues by quoting a statement from Ranachim Bar Yitzchak, who says, Nitzul Meshibud Malchios. He will be saved from the subjugation of kingdoms. And the Beis Yosef over here continues explaining the measure for measure. Since he accepted upon himself the yoke of Shabbos, therefore he will be the yoke of the kingdoms will be removed from upon him as well. Then the Torah says, Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, Kol Ma'anek Shabbos Noisnim Loy Mishalos Libo. Whoever on his Shabbos will be given anything that he asks for, he's going to be given. So the Beis Yosef explains that he's going to be given measure for measure. Also, he's going to honor Shabbos. He's going to make it pleasurable. He's going to be given those sorts of pleasures as well back, and he can fulfill his needs and what he wants to do. Then the Torah says another statement of Chazal, but you gotta love these explanations that the Beis Yosef over here is giving. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, very profound. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, it was said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Meshamer Shabbos Kilchasa, Afilu Ovid Avodah Zara Moichelna. Wow, whoever guards Shabbos according to the halacha, even if he was serving with idolatry, is involved with an idolatry, he's going to be forgiven. The obvious question is, this guy's bowing down to idols. Why is he going to be forgiven? So comes along the Beis Yosef to the rescue again, and he quotes the Yerushalmi Meseches Nedarim at the end of the third parak. Shabbos is equivalent to all of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Why? Shabbos is so important because it shows the hashkacha pratis that Hashem has over everything. Hashem is involved with the creation of the world and the continued existence, every single last blade of grass and every single small insect. And Hashem is in complete power of this, and the Torah is from heaven, and therefore once a person guards Shabbos, we assume that the idolatry that he was involved with was not because he believed in it. It was just, he was doing it peer pressure, something else, but it's not that he believed in it, and therefore he will get forgiven with the tshuva.
Such a thing as a mumer l'teyavon for avodah zarah.
A mumer l'teyavon for avodah zarah. So also we're gonna have
That's
to
a thing.
right. So we're also gonna, I think the Taz, if I'm not mistaken, which we're gonna have to address, is gonna go into what's talking about over here. You're keeping Shabbos, you're forgiven. Do you do tshuva or not? If you did tshuva, you're gonna get forgiven anyways because you did tshuva. If you didn't do tshuva, then how is Shabbos going to help? Well, this kind of touches upon that because it helps that from the fact that we assume that you were doing it just because of not the real reasons to serve it. Yeah, I don't know. Mumer l'telvon. We was doing it for not reasons to actually worship it, to serve it. Okay, there's what to look into
Yeah,
there.
the brackets here saying that Enosh himself was over the What do we say? The daughter
Which,
of
which,
Enosh?
which, which? Oh, this Kenosh, yeah, like the generation of Enosh.
So
There's
we say
different
daughter
texts.
Enosh, I mean, because he's saying Enosh herself.
Yeah, like Enosh. Okay, what's this
That was
Dalit over
way
here
up.
down here? Dalit over here goes into different texts and it okay, yeah, okay. All right, okay, it's a good point, pointing out as usual. All right, anyways, so that's what he says, and therefore it will be good. However, if a person is doing the idolatry because he thinks that this actually has substance to it, so then that's far from repenting. Apparently they said in someone said in the hospital that the placenta, there's certain religions. What was the name of the religion? K and then HONG, something like that. Something like that. They said that they have a custom to eat the placenta out of the mother. I was thinking, wow, that's yeah, you can't make that up or keep it in the refrigerator or whatever. So the question is, why are they doing that? Are they just doing that because that's their tradition, or are they doing it because they believe in the spirits and the powers? You Google it. I Google it. I was, yeah, you learn something new every day. So anyways,
The going wonder about a lot of our.
yeah, I said right there to the nurse, I said, what is the weirdest thing that you think we do?
Ah, you said that.
Yeah. So now she didn't have that custom, so she said, "Well, turning off the electronics on chat." I said, "It's great. It's great. It's relaxing. You actually communicate with people." And she said, "I hear that. If I could do it, I would do it." That's what she said. And that reminded, yeah. And then that reminded me of a story that my grandfather told me when he was 99. He said he once had someone who through business he was working with, whatever, and he said that the person said, "How do you guys do it? Every single week you get your family to come in. I could barely get my family on the table for 2 hours once a year." So you see, that's what the achdus is. And then we were talking about it more, and yeah, it fosters everyone coming together, working on relationships. It's very important, very important. Anyways, this is the Beis Yosef. Comes along the Ramah, and we're going to touch upon this more. You got it or no? You found it?
Among.
Yeah, that's the one. Hamang, that was the one. It's in Asia or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where are they from? What country?
it was Asian. It seemed
Yeah.
like based
That's
in.
what it said.
Yeah.
Asian.
Yeah, I looked at it for only 45 seconds, but whatever. Darchi Moshe over here quotes another topic that we're going to learn about in the upcoming sessions, which is making challah for Shabbos and the dough. So we're going to come about that nowadays. Buying it in a bakery, you don't need to make it if it's going to taste better in a bakery. We're going to come to all the details about that. Difference if you're going to have around 5 pounds to separate challah with the bracha or not. Anyways, so that's what the Darchi Moshe talks about. This Bach over here says that, look, Shabbos, we have two mitzvahs over here. We have a positive mitzvah of sanctifying Shabbos in general, right? Like we say in the Pasuk, Zachar Yom Shabbos likadsho, to sanctify it, and that is done through having kiddush, through the yayin, the wine or grape juice, and that's included in oneg, like the pasuk in Yeshaya says, "V'karos l'Shabbos oneg." It's a pleasure. Number two says the Bach is that we have. So those are like the positive. Now we have the negative mitzvahs, right? Now we have the passive mitzvahs, which are not to do any work. So that's very difficult for a person to do, to not only shell out money for the expenses of Shabbos, but also to refrain from now making money and not performing any work. Therefore, the Torah explains the Bach. The Torah over here is saying, look, you got to know these statements from the Gemara about how great the reward is for keeping Shabbos, about how important it is to spend money for Shabbos, to honor it properly. And that's basically what he says. And be careful not to do work on it. And a person shouldn't say, you know what? I'm a serious Steiger. Let me just learn Torah the whole Shabbos. I won't eat so much on Shabbos, and then I'll gain two things. Number one, it won't cost a lot of money. And number two, I'll learn more Torah. I'll come up with all sorts of chidushim on Shabbos. No. That's why we're actually going to learn there's a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. And in short, on Shabbos, everyone agrees that there has to be a physical enjoyment about Shabbos and an aspect to it, and it shouldn't be just completely learning and davening. So that's an important point that the Bach makes. And yeah, it's interesting that he doesn't quote the Chazal. I would think it would tie in nicely to this in the beginning of the second parak of Beitza and Tez Zayin, that all the expenses that a person pays for things for, right? All of a person's parnasa is already predetermined in the beginning of the year from Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah, right? All of a person's invested money, everything, how much you will make, it's all predetermined, right? anything, any field that a person's in or whatever, however a person can make money, it's all predetermined. Except for the Gemara is saying, we're going to learn about all the specific exceptions. Shabbos is one of them. It's really any mitzvah. The more a person pays for it, the more he will receive in return. That's what the Bach is saying, why the Torah is opening up with all these non-halachic statements to teach us. It's a halacha statement, but to teach us, no, Shabbos is important, and you keep it, and you'll get repaid for whatever you keep. Don't worry, those dividends will be coming in on a very high yield. That's what this is saying. Then the Torah continues and writes, Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, Amalei Sham Yisrael, Shabbos Rishona, Kel Chasa, Lo Yishalta Behemum Avlashon. If the Jews would have kept the first Shabbos, no nation would have ruled them. Who is this? The Beis Yosef on the left. The Beis Yosef quotes the pasuk in Shmos that says that the Jews, they went out to collect for the man. And then afterwards, the pasuk immediately says, or shortly thereafter, Vayavo Amalek. Amalek came. How could we reconcile the juxtaposition of these two seemingly disconnected ideas in psukim? So comes along the Mahari Avuhav yet again, and he says that, look, if Amalek wouldn't have came first, and it's like the person who goes in the hot tub first, he makes it a little colder for everyone else. If Amalek wouldn't have came in first, then no one would have attacked him, right? Everyone would have been afraid from all the miraculous acts that Hashem performed for us when we left Mitzrayim. However, since Amalek came, so therefore everyone else was able to come in. So what this is saying is that if we would have kept Shabbos, then we wouldn't have even, Amalek would have never came. Consequently, everyone else wouldn't have came after us as well. Then the Torah proceeds to quote Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Galag Bomer coming up. If the Jews would keep 2 Shabbos, every single Jew, we would get redeemed immediately and Mashiach will come. So the obvious question on this statement in the Gemara in the Bavli of Shabbos is, what do you mean? The Yerushalmi explicitly says 1 Shabbos. So if I'm not mistaken, the Marshar, it could be in the Yalkut Mefarshim in the back of the Gemara, and this Gemara in the Bavli and Shabbos says, quotes someone, and says that, no, it's not a contradiction. They already kept 1 in the midbar. All we need is 1 left. So hence the song, just 1 Shabbos and we'll all be free. That's where it comes from. It comes from the statement. All we need is 1 Shabbos, everyone to keep it. Pretty hard thing to do, considering the fact that 70% of Jews don't keep Shabbos, or perhaps more in the world. But this is what we're told over here. Okay, so that is the Torah. The Bach over here continues in saying that this idea that that everyone agrees that you need a lachem, that you need a physical aspect of Shabbos. He goes into that a little bit more, some of the technicalities over there. And now the Bach then continues to quote the Yerushalmi in the 15th parak of Shabbos Halacha Gimel that says, Lo nisnu Shabbosos elo lasoik behem b'Torah. The Shabbos was only given to learn Torah. The Bach explains, no. That means that you got to be learning Torah on Shabbos, right? But you still have to have an aspect of lachem, of a physical enjoyment. So that's how he basically explains that Gemara. And on Yontif, you split it up more. And also, but on Shabbos, he says you got to dedicate the day to Torah. That's basically what he says. Perhaps, yeah.
But both agree that you need a lochem, meaning to
Yes.
be owning Shabbos,
Yeah.
to enjoy physically.
Yes, everyone agrees. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. Yeah. Okay. Then the Torah over here continues, and he quotes the Gemara in Psachim, that Gemara that we've been talking about until now. Here it is. There's the pasuk. How do we know that there has to be a physical element and enjoyment of Shabbos? The answer is this pasuk in Yeshaya. The Karasol Shabbos oneg. You shall call it a pleasure mishum. To bechag krok siv aser sel lachem. Krochin siv aser shem okechem. Okay, then he quotes the entire Gemara and he goes into a Shabbos you need lachem. Then the Torah proceeds to quote another statement which Baruch Hashem isn't as applicable as it used to be nowadays, that I would say Jews in general have more wealth than perhaps any time in history. Perhaps one could argue. But let's say a person doesn't have. So Rabbi Akiva says a statement which we're going to see quoted over and over. And even though this doesn't apply to us, this is important that we have these ideas in mind and we see what's the most important aspect of Shabbos. Like when we learned the halachas of Hanukkah. If a person has limited money, what should he buy? Kiddush, challah, ner Hanukkah, ner Shabbos, food for the Suda. For which Suda should it be? Remember, we learned about all that.
hierarchy.
That was deep stuff that we learned. That was very enjoyable. Nowadays, it's different than we have electricity. So even though that doesn't apply to us, nevertheless, we see what is the most important and why. You see the essence of the mitzvahs and what is truly the most important, and you glean a tremendous amount of insight from that and hashkafa. But anyways, so Rabbi Akiva says, make your Shabbos a week-like and don't need people. This means like this. A person could shell out, making up a number, $150 on Shabbos expenses for food. Okay, but by doing so, now he's gonna have to start asking for money for people during the rest of the week. Or he could shell out, making up a number, $80 for food on Shabbos. And instead of that, he'll keep it more simple, two dishes bare minimum on each Suda, and he won't need to ask for people. Says Rabbi Akiva, you should do the latter. You should just make your Shabbos, notch it down, take it down a little bit, make it weekday-like, and don't start asking people for money. That's what he says. Now, what type of poor person is this? We have to categorize who he's referring to. This is referring to b'deloi efshalei, someone who it's impossible, he can't afford it. But someone who's able to afford it certainly should be having more of a lavish items at the table for Shabbos from a physical and food perspective. Aval b'de'efshalei sarach lekavdo. Kifi, someone who it's possible, he should honor kifi yachalaso, according to his financial ability. And we're going to see somewhere, I just want to bring it up now, that a lot of times you see people that they overbuy and they know they're not going to eat all Shabbos. They overcook. They know that they're purposely going to have leftovers and whatever. Those leftovers, I would assume, is a chiddush. If you know you're going to have the leftovers because you're making much more than you're able to eat, is not included in expenses for Shabbos that you'll be repaid for. Just want to point that out. We're going to see that, I think, explicitly brought down by someone and somewhere.
We're gonna see
So-
specifically, like you buy a whole fish.
That's
the
right.
Fish is big.
That's right.
So-
That's right. If you know you're not going to eat it. So let's say the fish is, I'm making a price of $30, and you know you're only going to eat half, and you're purposely making that you're going to have leftovers or something. $15 only getting repaid for.
It's a typical Jewish mother, you're having company, but they
Yeah.
make for an army.
That's the thing. The companies in what I'm aware of, what I've seen is a lot of times the company, there always has to be like double the amount of extra food, and there always has to be double the amount of dishes than you usually make. That also, it's the same thing, which by the way, it's very funny because actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw this in the art scroll, the green art scroll, the Pirkei Avos somewhere. The Chafetz Chaim, he's quoted down there in one of the insights on the bottom, and he's like, look, it could be on the first Mishnah actually in Avos, and in the first parak, excuse me, where he might say this, that if you have company, and now by you getting nervous because you have to cook a lot and make a lot and do a thing you're not gonna have, take it down a notch. Do whatever you do for yourself. That's what's expected. That's basically, yeah, he says something like that. That's what he says, which is an interesting thing. Anyways, he has a whole sefer Avas Chesed, which is not known so much, where he's big into Chesed also. But anyways, so that's what he says over here. Okay, then the Torah continues and quotes another Gemara in Shabbos, and he says on Kuf Yates, and we learned this when we learned, I think, Siman Reish Nun or something. As Ashirim she bekol aratzos, b'mahim zoichen. How did people merit wealth in the lands out of Israel, in the diaspora? They honored Shabbos. That's the Gemara over there that says that they would honor Shabbos by having a table. Remember this? That was so heavy, it was made out of gold. It required 16 people to lift the table to move it somewhere else. Remember that? 16. There's a lot of ideas behind 16s. Yeah. Okay. And then it says over there in Shabbos, B'ma ba'anga, how should a person honor Shabbos? B'dogim gedol, and big fish. Now, we already learned about many reasons for having fish. Dag in Gematria 7. The story of Mocher Shabbos. What was the
Yosef Mocher
Yosef
Shabbos.
Moshe Shabbos, the whole episode that happened with the diamond on his head, right? He was buying fish last minute. The fish came into the market last minute. He went above and beyond, and he bought the fish because he said, if I'm not going to buy the fish now, even though for sure he already prepared the fish and he had fish ready, He said, if I'm not going to prepare it, people, the fishermen, they're going to stop bringing in fish maybe Erev Shabbos, supply and demand, they're going to jack up the price. That's not good. We're actually going to learn about price hiking over here. We're going to learn about that and what to do if that happens. And that's going to come up actually. And he basically said, I'm going to buy the fish. And he bought the fish and he found in it a special diamond and it was worth tens of millions of dollars. And then he sold it, the whole story over there. So that happened because the other guy put the diamond on his
He
head.
saw in the future, right?
Yeah,
that
so in the
lose his
future he's
wealth,
gonna
and
lose his
then the
wealth.
one diamond.
Right, exactly. So it's all about fish, nothing fishy about that story at all. So therefore, that's the fish business and a lot of ideas behind it. So now it says over there that they would have dog and midol, big fish, Biroshi Shuman, the heads of garlic. You see garlic dips.
That's
Where
right.
does that come from? The answer is it's an explicit Gemara. V'tav shil shel trodin, a dish made out of beets. And we're gonna learn also if you don't like fish, you don't have to have fish. We're gonna see also there's gonna be a big idea to have fish at all three sudas. Also, we're gonna see. Again, that's if you like it. Now, v'hadamar Rabbi Chia Barashi. Afilu davar mua v'asolo kavod Shabbos haviyoinu. Gemara papa afilu karsa daharsna hayl misha chukolo. But the Gemara says that even something small could be good in honor of Shabbos. And that's even Kasa de Harsana, which is like a small fish. We'll learn about what that is exactly. That's only if someone is financially unable to afford more. But if he's able to, good. Then the Torah quotes his father. The Kama Pamim Nishalti. Many times I asked, and I went back and forth about this matter, and I asked Adoni Avi Harashal. I asked my father, my master, the Rosh. Kamoini Hayom, someone like me, says the Torah. Sheyesh li ma'at mishali. I'm not a millionaire. You know, I just have a little bit over here. Ve'ini masbikli, it's really not enough. I have the bare minimum. V'sarach ani la'achim, I really need other people. Imani b'chal aseh Shabbosach v'chol ima. Am I included in this? I should make my Shabbos week-like, and I should just have it less lavish. That's what I should do. So he answered and he said, "Velo hishivani davar bara." Apparently, his father Rush didn't answer any on this question.
Not so clear.
I don't know why not. Was it really not that clear? The Rush is a massive Talmud Chacham. We know a well-known parish on the whole Shas, pretty much. I mean, he knew halacha. And then the Torah says, by the way, after I found it was in Pirkei Avos, and Rashi answers this question. Rashi says in the Mishnah that says, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says, fifth parak Avos, towards the end of the parak, Havi az kenamer, be bold like a leopard. And then Rashi over there comments on that Mishnah, and we'll see what leopards have to do with the halachas of Shabbos. That he explains that that's why Rabbi Akiva says that statement. He ties that statement in that make your Shabbos week-like, and that's what Bein Tema was talking about to teach us that Rabbi Akiva only said this statement of make your Shabbos, notch it down a little bit. That's only someone who really needs it. However, one should try to strengthen himself like a leopard and an eagle to honor Shabbos properly. So therefore, says the Torah, everyone should try to, and this, by the way, this I'm going to add actually to my collection of what does the Torah say about money and all the sources and all this. This we see tremendous amount of insight also. It's an excellent source. No one ties this in. This you see, Al Kain Sarach Kol Adam L'Samsein B'Shar Yamim. A person has to budget his weekday expenses. This is talking about, remember, someone who needs to take, you know, and they're all
He needs to take?
Yeah, he needs to take food. He can't afford food, right? I don't know firsthand because I'm not involved with any sort of food distributions, but there are probably people that own houses that need to take food. Believe it or not, there probably are. I didn't look into it. You can speak to
Okay,
people.
Shabbos.
Yeah, you could speak to people who are involved. I personally delivered a few packages in the past, and they get delivered to homes. Now, I don't know if they're renting, if they're buying, whatever it is, but I do know from the research that I've done on finance and these matters is that the facts of the matter is that there's a large percentage, you could Google it, of people who are living paycheck to paycheck, and even people who are earning 6 digits.
Especially in the Jewish world,
oh, 100%.
the tuition
And
and health
and
insurance.
the Torah over here is saying something very insightful, actually, just to focus on these words. A person needs to set up a proper budget. And that's the problem, because people are always upping it until they're going paycheck to paycheck over here. And that's an issue. And the Torah is saying that's why you got it. This is a source, by the way, for budgeting. And by the way, I put up a sheer get out of debt.
Hmm.
I put it up. I
Where
put it
does
up.
it say-
It's on the thing. I should have quoted this.
Yeah.
Now I could put it in a
Put it
footnote.
in
I could add it to
there.
my notes. But this is what it's saying over here, is that a person has to budget. Don't say no, but if I'm going to keep Shabbos, I'm going to lose Parnassa. I'm fifth generation New Yorker. My family's been here the longest. Right? They're one of the first people. And what happened? When they came here, that was the biggest nisayon, not to work on Shabbos. They didn't work on Shabbos, they made it. Yeah.
Was looking for a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was not going to go work on Shabbos.
Yeah.
Period. Going back.
Yeah.
So one day he sees in the paper, no calls on Saturday.
Oh,
Calls. He figured it, no calls on Saturday. He's probably a firm guy.
you would
Yeah.
hope,
He
right?
was a furrier, so he came to work there as an apprentice.
Yeah.
Furrier, and became a furrier because of that.
Yeah. That's
And the guy was a Shomer Shabbos?
The guy was Shomer Shabbos, but my father understood no
No,
calls on
right,
Saturday.
he hopped
That's
around.
great.
And they advertised for, to hire somebody.
That's great.
Very good.
I remember they used to tell me, they said, you don't come Saturday, don't come back on Sunday.
And then the shul I used to daven in, I heard the history of it.
Yeah.
It was called, it was called, sorry, it was called Anshe Sfar.
Okay.
From that shul, a lot of members just walked out of the shul
Heard about
and
this.
started Shomer Shabbos Anshe Sfar, which is the vineyard that you 24-hour vineyard.
In Borough Park.
Oh, yeah,
So
really?
that was from that shul.
Wow.
They were very upset that so many people come there to daven, but they had to make an earlier minyan, like an 8 o'clock minyan instead of 8:30 or 9 o'clock.
Right.
Because they had to go to work.
That's where I heard Hashkama came
Wow.
from. Yeah, that's what I heard originally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
where do we see from here that the
Yeah.
person is on the take? So Shashad the Chukalo doesn't say that he's on the take though.
on the take? What?
Meaning that he's taking money. Did we ever explain this that the person
Oh.
still takes money?
Did he take your money?
Yeah.
No, but this is saying over here is that, yeah, this is all, remember, this is all, we're all in a deep analysis of Rabbi Akiva's statement, who
Right,
said,
right, right.
make your Shabbos weekday-like in terms of the food that you're
Oh, so
eating.
still going over Rabbi
And don't,
Akiva's-
yeah, we're all going on Rabbi Akiva explaining it. So that's what the Torah is saying. You gotta, Alkein Sarach Adam Lasamsein. Lasamsein means to fit in it,
Contract,
fit in a tight, small area.
right? You gotta
That means
pull
you have to budget. That's what he's saying in
Yeah,
English. You have to budget. And that's an important thing.
Okay.
Now they have these things out there. And this is what most people need, because most people don't get to the level of being able to invest because they don't have leftover money. So they call them now a financial coach. That's the term that's used to help you budget. They really have it's a very popular thing now. That's what a lot of young people need. That's what it is. They don't know how to budget. I just bumped into in the hospital one of my old friends that I went to camp with many years ago. He's becoming a doctor. You know, but doctors also, just because you become a doctor, you are a lot of times you're in a tremendous amount of debt that you have to pay back.
Loans
It's,
and everything.
you know, now that's, you could call a good debt, right? We're not talking about debt because the guy's going on Fifth Avenue and buying a Louis Vuitton bag for $40,000, whatever they cost, right? And then where the guy's, you know, so a person's got to know. That's what this is saying over here. A person has to know his financial status, and he has to make sure that he's not irresponsible. And that's why I would say all these people who could help people budget, and it would be a tremendous chesed for them, because the people a lot of times don't want to pay for it. And if someone could do it and they're willing to do it as a chesed, the community should start it if they don't already have it. I don't know. I'm not involved with this stuff, but that's what this is saying. A lot of this stuff happens because of irresponsible decisions, which it makes sense because these things aren't taught in school. The topics that we're talking about are not
That's
taught in school. It's not. So that's why a person needs to be careful. Va'al yomer. And then here's the next line that he says. Don't say, how will I just, how am I going to be able to put food on the table if I'm not going to work on Shabbos? The adraba im yosef yosifulo. If you're going to add, then it will be added. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. It will be added. That's it.
Isn't
That's what
I
it
was
says.
talking about.
That it will be added. And therefore, he says, since that's so, don't worry, because you'll get repaid for it. That's what the Torah says. Obviously, the stuff is easier said than done. And that's what it is. At the end, one last
The
thing.
next line was the,
Which
what was the
one?
Rebbe's quoting on Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine. We're going to see that tomorrow. All of a person's income is predetermined on Rosh Hashanah, except for, and we're going to come back to that statement as well. We're going to come back to that. That's what the Torah quotes. And then he goes into Hillel Shammai, which we already learned about. We're going to come back to that also. And at the end, he says, and this is another topic that we're going to be learning about in this Siman, which is only one sif, but it's 2 pages in the Mishnah Berurah, that there are 10 enactments that Ezra made. Now, just to put into, I'm not an expert in biographies and history and all this, but you got to know Ezra. Ezra built the second Beis Hamikdash, right? Remember when we learned on the Parsha a few weeks ago, Im Hashem lo yivna bayis, shav amlav bo, right? There's a song, Im Hashem lo yivna bayis, shav amlav, shin and then ayin, Shlomo and ayin, Ezra. Shav, it was for nothing. If Hashem isn't going to build the Beis Hamikdash, the third one will be him. It was for nothing, even if Shlomo Amel is going to build an Ezra. So one of Ezra's enactments is you got to do laundry Thursday, no laundry Friday. Now, why not? Simple explanation is we got to prepare for Shabbos. The obvious question is nowadays you don't need to go down to the river. You don't need to dry out all the things. It's a simple push on a button or two. Does it still apply? Why yes? Why not? Because we're gonna come all this. This is the basic tour with some of the highlights of the Beis Yosef and the Bach, which I thought were worthwhile to quote. Took me a couple hours. I went through this. This is basically a condensed version. You're getting the fruits of my labor for what I went through. You want to go through the whole thing? I'll give you the head there. You definitely could. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we will start the Shulchan Aruch on the Siman. Everyone should have a wonderful day. And don't forget to wash and have a lavish Suda in honor of Rosh Chodesh. The first day of Rosh Chodesh, the second day is really the real day, aka today. Siman Tov Yud Tes Torah Shulchan Aruch. All right, Brachim to you.
Sure. Where does it come from with having
All right, have a good
babysitter? All right, having
Having what?
two types of fish on by each shooter.
We'll discuss the fish more.
I'm
All
excited.
right, have a good one.
All right.